tools to eliminate internal trade barriers as Canada seeks to lessen its dependence on the U.S. Despite President Trump scaling back some tariffs on North American trade partners, Eby insisted that Canada will not tolerate these ongoing threats and uncertainty. We're standing up for Canadians. This behavior is unacceptable, and we are making it clear to the U.S. just how frustrated we are, he said. I say we don't back down until the president takes the threat off the table. Eby noted that while he wouldn't implement the tolls immediately and the number of affected trucks is relatively small, the move signals the growing strain between longtime allies as Canada ramps up pressure on Trump to abandon his tariffs. Here's a corrected and more clearly written version. The White House has launched a trade war we never wanted, and we must respond decisively, said Premier Eby. These initial measures are just the beginning. In the coming weeks, we will introduce additional tools to safeguard our economy against this sustained economic aggression. The BC government plans to introduce tariff response legislation in the coming days, equipping the province with new mechanisms to protect jobs, businesses, and swiftly address challenges stemming from Trump's trade war. Interprovincial trade barriers to strengthen BC's internal economy, mandating that low-carbon fuel additives for gasoline and diesel be sourced within Canada, and implementing tolls or fees on U.S. commercial vehicles using BC infrastructure to reach Alaska. These tariffs are a serious misstep by Trump's administration, hurting families and businesses on both sides of the border. Premier Eby added, "Our government will fight for British Columbians every step of the way, and every option remains on the table." As an immediate response, the province has directed the BC Liquor Distribution Branch to halt purchases of American liquor from red states, removing those brands from public liquor store shelves. Additionally, BC government agencies and Crown corporations have been instructed to prioritize Canadian goods and services. These actions are part of a broader Team Canada approach, which includes the federal government's 25% tariff on $15.5 billion worth of U.S. imports, alongside countermeasures from other provinces and territories to reduce reliance on U.S. trade. British Columbia is aggressively pursuing new markets and accelerating approvals for major investment projects. The initial wave of projects, valued at $20 billion, will create an estimated 8,000 jobs, particularly benefiting rural and remote communities. To ensure a coordinated and effective response, Premier Eby has established a Trade and Economic Security Task Force, bringing together leaders from business, labor, and Indigenous communities. Additionally, a task force on agriculture and the food economy will work to safeguard BC's food supply. A BC Softwood Advisory Council is also developing a diplomatic and trade strategy to defend BC's interests in the ongoing softwood lumber dispute. A newly formed cabinet committee will oversee the government's comprehensive response. With these measures, British Columbia is taking bold steps to protect its economy, workers, and businesses from the impact of U.S. tariffs, while strengthening trade and economic resilience for the future. Canada plays a crucial role in connecting Alaska to the rest of the United States. Alaska is a geographical exclave, meaning it is not directly connected to the contiguous U.S. by land. The vast Canadian territory between Alaska and the rest of the United States serves as a necessary transit region for travel, trade, and infrastructure. One of the most significant connections between Alaska and the lower 48 states is the Alaska Highway, also known as the Alcan Highway. This vital roadway stretches from Dawson Creek in British Columbia, Canada, and extends all the way to Delta Junction, Alaska. Constructed during World War II to provide a secure supply route for military operations, the highway remains the primary overland connection between Alaska and the rest of the U.S. Despite improvements over the decades, much of the route still passes through rugged and remote landscapes, requiring travelers to drive through several hundred miles of Canadian territory before reaching Alaska. Beyond road transportation, air travel also relies heavily on Canada's geographical position. Many flights between Alaska and other U.S. states pass through Canadian airspace, and some even make stops in Canadian cities. Canada's air traffic control systems play an essential role in managing the movement of aircraft traveling between Alaska and destinations across the United States. The cooperation between American and Canadian aviation authorities ensures the smooth operation of these air routes. Trade and commerce further emphasize Canada's role in linking Alaska with the rest of the United States. Although is no direct railway connecting Alaska to the lower 48 states, rail and freight services frequently transport goods through Canada. The Port of Vancouver in British Columbia is a major transit hub for shipments moving to and from Alaska. Many essential supplies, including food, fuel, and construction materials, are transported through Canadian ports and railways before reaching their final destinations in Alaska. For those traveling between Alaska and the contiguous United States by car or truck, crossing the contain close diplomatic relations that facilitate relatively easy border crossings, particularly for trade, tourism, and personal travel. However, travelers must adhere to Canadian customs and immigration regulations, ensuring that their documentation is in order before passing through the country. Another key aspect of the connection between Alaska and the rest of the United States through Canada is energy infrastructure. Alaska is rich in natural resources, particularly oil and natural gas, and Canada provides crucial transit routes for these resources to reach American and international markets. Pipelines and shipping routes allow the transportation of Alaskan energy products through Canada, supporting both the U.S. economy and global energy demands. Alaska maintains a strong economic and logistical relationship with Canada, playing a crucial role in trade, transportation, and connectivity. The exchange of goods between Alaska and Canada is significant, with over $1 billion worth of trade occurring annually. Of this, approximately $596 million is exported from Alaska to Canada, while $753 million in goods are imported into Alaska from Canada. This trade supports industries such as energy, seafood, and manufacturing, ensuring a steady flow of essential commodities between the two regions. In addition to land-based transportation, marine shipping plays a vital role in the movement of goods and people between Alaska and Canada. The Inside Passage, a scenic and strategically important coastal waterway, connects southeastern Alaska with British Columbia. This route is heavily utilized for commercial shipping, tourism, and passenger travel. Regular ferry operations, including those managed by the Alaska Marine Highway System and BC Ferries, facilitate transportation between Alaskan and Canadian coastal communities. These ferry services not only enhance trade, but also provide a crucial link for residents, particularly in remote regions where road access is limited. Premier Tim Houston of Nova Scotia strongly condemned the tariffs, calling Trump short-sighted and reckless. In response, Nova Scotia is implementing several measures, including banning American businesses from bidding on provincial government contracts and reviewing existing agreements, doubling tolls for U.S. commercial vehicles on the Cobe-Quid Pass, and removing U.S.-made alcoholic products from Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation stores. The province is also allocating a contingency fund in the 2025 to 2026 budget to counter tariff impacts. Beyond immediate actions, Houston emphasized strengthening domestic trade, eliminating internal Canadian trade barriers, and expanding global market opportunities. He assured Nova Scotians that his government would continue to defend their interests, urging residents to support Canadian businesses. Premier Danielle Smith of Alberta labeled the tariffs an unjustifiable economic attack and warned they would backfire on both nations. increasing prices and job losses. 1. While supporting the federal government's countermeasures, she announced that Alberta would unveil its own retaliatory actions within 24 hours. Smith called for national unity, urging all provinces to remove internal trade barriers and prioritize key resource projects such as pipelines and LNG facilities. She also stressed the need for Canada to strengthen global trade ties and bolster national defense spending in an increasingly volatile world. Premier Wab Kinew of Manitoba swiftly announced that all American alcohol would be removed from Manitoba liquor marts, reinforcing the province's commitment to retaliatory measures. Newfoundland and Labrador's Premier Andrew Furey denounced the tariffs as illegal and unjust, and took immediate action, including removing U.S. products from Newfoundland and Labrador Liquor Corporation shelves, reviewing and halting procurement of U.S. goods and services, and expanding market opportunities beyond the U.S., particularly in Europe. Furey also announced the creation of a roundtable on Canada-U.S. trade relations to strategize further responses. He called on Canadians to unite, emphasizing that Canada's identity, values, and sovereignty would guide the country through this economic conflict. Canada is accelerating efforts to diversify away from the U.S. market to reduce vulnerability. Building on existing free trade agreements like the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership and the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, Ottawa is encouraging businesses to pivot exports to Europe, Asia, and Latin America. The government is offering grants and financing to help industries adapt. Provinces are also focusing on new markets. British Columbia, for instance, is fast-tracking projects and seeking overseas customers, while Atlantic provinces are expanding seafood sales to Europe. Although proximity and long-standing ties make the U.S. a natural partner, persistent tariff threats have spurred a national resolve to find alternatives. Canada already has preferential deals with the EU, many Asia-Pacific countries, and various Latin American nations. Officials are pushing companies to use these agreements to replace lost U.S. sales. The hope is that increased exports to Japan, Europe, or other markets can offset some of the shortfall. Talks with India and other emerging economies could open additional opportunities. Canada also aims to deepen ties with Mexico and other CPTPP members, creating a broader free trade ecosystem that excludes the U.S., or at least lessens dependency on it. Canadian manufacturers and agricultural producers are reallocating resources, seeking alternate inputs, and exploring new export channels. Retailers are substituting U.S. goods with products from Canada or overseas. This transition may take time, but the current tariffs have created urgency. Long-standing trade frictions between the United States and Canada are not new. The two allies have weathered numerous disputes over the decades. Two of the most enduring is the softwood lumber conflict, which began in 1982 and persists today. 3. The U.S. lumber industry has long accused Canada of unfair subsidies and imposed countervailing duties, while Canada vehemently disputes those claims. This lumber war has seen multiple rounds of tariffs, legal battles, and temporary agreements, making it one of the largest and most enduring trade disputes in bilateral history. Other perennial flashpoints include Canadian dairy quotas versus U.S. access demands, and American country of origin labeling rules for meat, which were eventually overturned via a WTO challenge. Past U.S. administrations have occasionally imposed tariffs on Canadian goods, often provoking retaliation and eventual compromise. In 1930, the